Anytime. Hang on. What do you mean you don't have a master key?
I don't have a master key!
You lost the master key?
I did lose the master key.
That'll make sense later.
Okay.
I don't know if it actually will. But
No, it'll totally make sense. You did a good job.
This is like one of the things I remember about this case. I'm Missy.
I'm Micah.
And we are doing
another episode of Curious Tales.
It's Micah's turn this time.
It is my turn. I'm excited. Okay, so we are going to go over the mysterious murder in room 1046.
Room 1046.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
This particular case takes place, and aren't you proud of me? I'm doing a murder case.
I am.
Yeah, but this particular case takes place in Kansas City, Missouri in 1935.
Oh, there it is. It's the 30s. You do a lot of, like, more historical type things.
I do. I don't like modern murders. Okay, so this case takes place at the Hotel President, which was one of America's most prestigious hotels, and it is currently the only hotel in the city Power and Lights district. I don't know why that's important. I just thought it was an interesting, like, little tidbit.
Okay, so what do we know anything about the President Hotel? Or?
The hotel was best known for its drum room lounge, which hosted legendary entertainers like Frank Sinatra.
Nice.
It also hosted people like Benny Goodman and Marilyn May. I don't know who they are, but...
I know who Benny Goodman is.
Okay, well, they were thrown in with Frank Sinatra, so I assumed they were also legendary entertainers that I don't know about. This case starts January 2nd, 1935.
All right. Well, let's do it to it.
Okay.
Tell me about this case. I'm assuming it is someone within room 1046.
Good job. On Wednesday, January 2nd, a well-dressed man wearing a dark overcoat walked into the Hotel President.
Okay, I'm assuming he's the murder victim.
He asked for an interior room several floors up and checked into the room under the name of Roland T Owens with a Los Angeles address. He didn't want a room overlooking the street.
Where is this taking place again?
Kansas City.
Kansas. Okay,
Yeah.
So he's from Los Angeles and he's in Kansas.
Yes. He didn't want a room overlooking the street. Instead, they gave him a room overlooking the inside courtyard. He was thought to be anywhere between 20 to 35 years old. He had brown hair and a scar on his scalp. And he had a cauliflower ear. So he had some very identifying features. I had to look up what cauliflower ear was.
It's a condition where your ear kind of looks like cauliflower.
Yeah, it's a deformity of the outer ear, like you just said, that may occur after injury to the ear. Common causes include injuries from sports such as wrestling, boxing, and mixed martial arts. Basically being punched in the ear multiple times causes trauma, and the ear then will cause scarring.
Scar tissue will cause the skin to form in...
Yeah, basically.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So this led many of the people within the hotel to believe that he was like a professional boxer, or he, was a wrestler of some sort.
He had some sort of ear injury that had resulted in this.
And it was very common among wrestling and boxing.
Okay.
Yeah.
1930s, boxing was a thing.
Yeah. When Roland first checked into the hotel, a bellhop named Randolph Probst, and I call most people by their first name, but Randolph and Roland were a little bit hard for me to like, so I'm just going to call him Probst.
If you notice in the last episode we did, the Alcatraz, I used a lot of their first names.
Yeah.
I kind of use the brothers, but I use like Alan and Frank a lot rather than their last names.
So I'm going to call him Probst from now on, and he's one of the few I will refer to as like his surname. Anyways, just throwing that out there.
Makes sense.
Probst escorted him to his room on the 10th floor. While in the elevator, Roland complained to Probst that he'd spent the previous night at the nearby, I'm gonna try and say this name, Mulbach Hotel. You guys in Kansas City, let me know if I messed that up. Mulbach. But found that the $5 nightly rate was too high. $5 in 1935 is like $100 today. After arriving...
That's actually still not that bad.
I know, but apparently he couldn't like afford $100 a night. So he came here to the President Hotel, which was less. I don't know how much less.
Okay.
I couldn't find that information in 1935.
Well, it does make sense. We're like knee deep in the Depression in 1935.
Yeah, so, I mean, he just wanted a cheaper hotel. Once arriving at room 1046, Probst unlocked the door, then noticed something strange about their guest. Roland T Owens had no luggage. The bellhop watched as he unpacked a hairbrush, a comb, and toothpaste from his overcoat pocket. That was the extent of his unpacking.
He's wearing, like, extra clothes underneath his clothes.
Yeah, well, he has an overcoat, and he just pulled... Right. So he has what he's wearing and an overcoat.
Right, but I mean, he could be wearing layers of other clothes.
He could be, I don't know, but he didn't come in with a luggage or anything like that.
That is very strange.
But I guess maybe he sleeps in the nude, you know? I don't know, it's the Depression, man. Lots of people don't have stuff.
Luggage is expensive.
It was enough for Probst to notice that that was a little bit odd. After Roland put those items above the sink, he and Probst left the room, and the bellboy returned to lock it and gave Roland the key. After returning to the lobby, he saw Roland leave the hotel. Eventually, he came back to the hotel because at some point, a hotel maid by the name of Mary Soptic...
That's a name.
I know, right? I love the name Mary Soptic. It's kind of funny. She went into room 1046 to clean it. They had given him a room that had not been yet cleaned from the previous guest who stayed there because Mary was really surprised to see him. Which I don't know why they would give him a dirty room, but she just seemed really surprised to, like, for him to be there, basically.
Strange.
Even stranger, he was sitting in the dark with shades drawn and with only a small lamp turned on.
Okay.
She apologized.
And maybe he suffered from migraines.
I know, I was reading this, and every single time these people walk in, he's just sitting in the dark, and I'm like, same.
Same. Right? I was just sitting there going like, so?
I mean, how many times have you walked in and I'm just sitting there in the dark?
Several times, but I know you've suffered from chronic migraines since high school.
So I'm gonna guess it's not as strange as everybody thinks it is. It's just the guy has some severe migraines, okay?
Yeah, I'm like, you read that and my brain immediately goes, he suffers from migraines.
Yeah, the documentaries I was watching made it seem so very strange, and I was like, it's totally normal. I do this every day.
Or maybe he has light sensitivity.
I know, right?
You know, there's a lot of different reasons this guy is sitting in the dark. Okay, continue.
Anyways, so she apologized for surprising him, but he said that she could go ahead and clean the room anyways. He then left, but asked her to leave the door unlocked since he was expecting some friends over. Mary thought he seemed paranoid or that he seemed worried about something or afraid of someone. She did as he asked and left the door unlocked when she left. Later that day, around 4 p.m., Mary returned with some towels, and she does this through his stay. He stays for like 2 days.
No, I mean, you know, she's doing her job.
Yeah.
Fresh towels, clean the room.
Yeah.
Generally, you know.
And the door was still unlocked, so she just went ahead and let herself in. The room was completely dark, and she found him laying in bed, fully dressed, not asleep, not under the covers, just, you know, chilling. Migraines, man.
Migraines. I've seen from observing you, sometimes you just can't be vertical.
I know, right? On his bedside table, she found a note, which she could only read because of the light from the hallway. It said, Dawn, I will be back in 15 minutes. Wait.
Okay, so is Dawn the person leaving the note, or is he Dawn?
No, it's addressed to Dawn.
Okay, so to a friend.
Yeah. I guess, but I mean, he's
now,
clearly in the room.
Do we know how it is spelled? Is it spelled D-A-W-N?
See, that's what I thought originally when first watching a documentary, but when I did more research, it's spelled D-O-N as a guy.
That's generally a male version of Dawn. Dawn, for a girl, is usually spelled D-A-W-N.
Exactly.
So D-O-N is usually short for, like, Donald.
Yeah. She thought this was a little bit strange because obviously he's still in the room. He's not gone. But it could have been a letter from earlier that morning.
And he just didn't throw it away.
Yeah.
You know. He did say, like, previously, leave the door open. I have friends coming.
Exactly. So to me, it doesn't seem all that strange. Some of the things that people find strange, I'm like, no, that's totally normal. That's natural. What if he has, like, you know, sensitivities to eyes and light? And noise.
And I don't know about you, but sometimes if I leave a note and, like, you got it or whatever, but even if you got it, it might still be there in 2 or 3 days because we'd be lazy.
Yeah, and this is the day before, like, you used a telephone all the time. I mean, they had telephones, but you have to go through an operator, and maybe you don't know their number.
And if his friend was, like, coming up, maybe he had to step out.
If I'm staying in a hotel, it would stand to reason that you know people in the city, and they would come to visit you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, there might be a letter. I don't find it strange at all.
Not in the least.
Okay.
So far, I do not know what is strange about this case.
So, January 3rd, the next day, Mary comes back to room 1046 around 10:30 in the morning to just do some normal cleaning. This time, she notices that the door was locked from the outside, which led her to believe that Roland wasn't inside the room since it could only be locked from the outside. Okay, so like at this point, I'm getting confused by like 1930s hotel rooms because there's something a little weird. But my best guess is that you could like bolt lock yourself inside the room, but you would have to use the key to leave the room and lock your door. Sort of like our everyday front doors to apartments and houses, you know?
That makes sense.
So to me, that's like what's happening here.
So like, I know when you go to a hotel, you have the little lever, the little bolt thing.
Yeah, but they can get into the room even if it's bolted from the inside. So to me, it would make sense that it would be like your own little house bolt. When you walk into your house, you lock your door from the inside. And then somebody who has a key can unlock it. Because they use master keys here later on.
That does make sense.
Anyways, the door was locked from the outside, which led Mary to believe that Roland was out and about on the town. So she used her master key to unlock the door and found him just sitting in the dark. Just once again, chilling in the dark. Not doing anything. With only the one tiny lamp lit.
Your notes actually say that. Just chilling in the dark.
Just chilling. Just basically chilling. Same. Understandable. Retweet.
Totally. I mean, there are some times where I don't turn on my my lamp. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, whatever. We can't be bothered. Same, dude.
So,
and I don't even have migraines.
So Mary just went in there and began cleaning like normal. And honestly, I kind of think Mary's a little bit of a badass because if I walk into a room, I know I'm saying it's completely normal, but if I walk into a very, very dark room and there's a man sitting in the corner staring at the door, I'd be like, nope, and I'd walk out. You know, I'm not messing with that today. While Mary is cleaning, Roland gets a phone call. And Roland answers the call and he says, "No, Dawn, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I just had breakfast. No, I am not hungry."
Okay. It sounds like Dawn wants to go out and get breakfast. And Roland's like, no, I already had breakfast.
In all the documentaries, everybody always makes this phone call seem really eerie. But, like, if the door is locked from the outside, it would stand to reason that Dawn took the key, walked out, locked the door, and went to go out and about shopping. Maybe he ran into some food because it's 10:30, and he's like, oh, let me call back and see if maybe Roland wants something.
You know? And he's like, nah, I just had breakfast. I'm good. I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. You go do your thing.
Yeah.
I don't see what's strange here.
I know, right? But they always make this phone call out to be like something really
nefarious.
Like, I don't know, nefarious, sinister, mysterious, scary. It's just like, it's something, and I'm like, well, if the door is locked, then Dawn has the key. Of course it's locked. If he has a migraine, or if he's just sleeping, he's not going to leave the door unlocked for somebody to just come in and, like, murder him.
No. I mean, that would be too convenient.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, how many times have you just been, like, last week, you had a migraine where you were pretty much just,
all week,
you were just in bed. You could really barely function.
And if you left the house, you would not leave the door unlocked for somebody to just come in.
I lock it. I mean, of course, we have a too noisy security system in the name of Bonsai and Chumley, but I mean, at the same time, no. And I kept bringing you food and stuff.
So again, this doesn't seem nefarious or mysterious in the least to me.
And I do recall me asking, hey, Micah, are you hungry? You go, no, I'm not really hungry.
When you have a migraine, and we're just guessing at the migraine thing, but because it sounds like a migraine. But when you have a migraine, or you're just genuinely not feeling good, or you're sick, or whatever, you don't sometimes want to eat.
I made you toast one day. Okay? Toast.
So again, we don't know if he was scared or if he was just sick, you know?
We're just guessing at the migraines, because it
sounds an awful lot.
It makes logical sense.
Okay, so still holding the phone, Roland asked Mary about her job as she cleaned. He wanted to know if she was responsible for the entire floor, or if the president was like a residential hotel. So I guess he was thinking about maybe staying a little bit longer, you know, maybe living there. Some hotels are residential hotels.
Right, you can live there long term.
Just check out whenever you want.
That makes sense.
So he repeated his complaint about the Malbach Hotel's exorbitant rates, after which she finished cleaning and left, taking the used towels with her. Okay, so Mary comes back around 4.
Bring new fresh towels.
With some fresh towels. But when she brought these towels, she noticed that there were 2 men talking behind the door of 1046. I'm assuming Dawn came back, but I don't know. When she knocked on the door, she heard a loud, deep voice that wasn't Roland say, "Who is this?" When she responded, "It's Mary, the maid. I've brought you fresh towels." The strange voice said, "We don't need any." And yet Mary knew this was untrue because she'd taken all the towels that morning. So this now room has no towels, and Mary is judging because they don't want to get baths. Sorry, Mary, I'm sorry.
Those towels could have come in handy later.
This may be unrelated. There was sort of like a sighting of Roland T Owens outside of the hotel, but they were unsure as to whether or not Roland actually left the hotel this night. So I'll just go ahead and say the sighting. The guy who ran into him 100% believe it was him, but like later on the police were not 100% sure.
That makes sense. Like the guy's like, no, it's totally this guy, and the police are like, well, we can't take this credibly.
So around 11 p.m., a city worker named Robert Lane was driving on 13th Street near Lydia, which is only about 1.5 miles away from the hotel. I looked it up. I was like, well, how far is this? Like, how far out of the way could this be from the hotel that it wouldn't be him? But 1.5 miles isn't that much. Anyways, when he saw a man dressed in an undershirt, pants, and shoes run in front of his car and flag him down, Robert pulled over and the man apologized, saying he mistook the car for a taxi. And Robert could see that the man was bleeding and looked like he'd been beaten up. So he offered the strange man a ride to where he could get a taxi. In the mirror, Lane saw a deep scratch on the man's arm. He also noticed that he was holding his arm, possibly hiding a more severe wound. When Robert asked about his injuries, the man swore he would kill someone tomorrow.
Ew.
He drove about a mile to the nearby intersection of 12th Street and Truist Avenue, where he knew taxi drivers often waited. Robert stopped and let the man out, and the man thanked him, then walked across the street, where I keep saying Robert, and it's Robert, where Robert waited until the man got into a taxi before he drove away. This was like an encounter that was like a mile and a half away from the hotel, and somebody thought it was very strange, and so we're unsure as to whether or not this was him, this wasn't him. It was about, what did I say? It was about 11 p.m.
Okay. So it's about 11 o'clock at night. Dude, you're bleeding. I'm not trying to let a bleeding guy get in my car at 11 o'clock at night. But okay.
Well, the thing is, if he's bleeding and holding his arm, why, no offense, Robert, did you not take him to a hospital?
That
you took him to a taxi. Take him to the hospital.
The 30s, man. They were a different time.
I know, right? Earlier that day, around 6 p.m., a woman by the name of Jean Owen checked into the president after having shopped in the city for a few hours. She started feeling like a little bit sick, so instead of...
Wait, same last name?
Yeah, Jean Owen, where this one is Roland T Owen. Same last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any connection?
No.
No?
No.
Just same last name?
Just same. Owen is a very... common last name, I think.
I apologize for my nose, guys. It's a little stuffed up.
That's
so if
okay.
y'all hear me sniffling, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. She started feeling sick and decided not to drive home that night. And she was given the room next to Roland's in room 1048.
That's just irony. Okay.
I know. Ironic.
Irony is often ironic.
Later that night, she heard a man and a woman arguing and cursing at each other. Now, it should also be noted that late that night, there was a hotel party going on in room 1055. So it could also be that she heard the man and the woman arguing and cursing at each other from this party.
That makes sense.
But not necessarily from the room next door. But she swears it's from the hotel room next door. Which, I guess, you would be able to tell which wall that arguing is coming from, right?
Well, let's say, for the sake of argument, that this argument, they left the party and they're arguing in the hallway, and it's right outside the guy's door.
That is a possibility.
It would possibly sound like it might be. I don't know.
Yeah. So,
I don't know, how thick the walls are.
Yeah, so the police were not sure as to whether or not this was happening in Roland's room, or whether or not it was coming from the party in 1055. So, another strange thing happened. An elevator operator named Charles Blocker began his shift around midnight. He recalled a strange incident with a woman who he'd seen many times before. She was often seen at the hotel visiting male guests in the room, so many of the hotel staff believed her to be a prostitute. She first arrived sometime between midnight and 3 a.m. Charles took her to the 10th floor, and she said that she was looking for someone in room 1026. 5 minutes later, the elevator was summoned to the 10th floor again, where Charles met up with the same woman who seemed confused that her client was not in the room. She wondered if she'd gotten the room number wrong and thought maybe he meant 1024. She decided to stay on the 10th floor and look for her client a little bit longer, and 30 minutes later, Blocker got another signal to take the elevator back up to the 10th floor. When he got there, the woman was still waiting. Still unable to find her client, and Charles escorted her down to the lobby where she waited. An hour later, he took her and a different man to the 9th floor. It is possible that she found her client on the bottom floor and she got her floor wrong and they went up to the 9th floor. It is also possible that she found a different client. It is possible that she was wrong on the room and she was looking for 1046, not 1026.
There's speculation.
There's speculation.
But nothing concrete?
Yeah, nothing concrete. So, yeah. But she left the hotel around 4:15 a.m. and about 15 minutes later, the man that she took up to the 9th floor requested an elevator down. He told Charles that he could not sleep and was going out for a walk. So now we have this mysterious man and a mysterious woman roaming the hallways.
Hang on. You just bought a possible prostitute and you're sitting in an elevator 10, 15 minutes later? I mean, you are all business.
Like, they were only up there for a little while, and then she leaves, and then 15 minutes later, he leaves to go for a walk because he can't sleep. I could not find anywhere else that they say the man comes back that night. So, like, did he just go for a walk and, like, not come back?
Okay. Again, these could be completely unrelated things.
Exactly, but it is kind of interesting, all the happenings in the hotel the night that somebody is murdered. Remember 4:15, because 4 o'clock is about the time he's murdered. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that the mystery man and the possible prostitute had something to do with it.
Okay.
But again, no definitive explanation.
Interesting.
We are on January 4th when at 7 a.m., Della Ferguson starts her shift as a switchboard operator at the hotel. Roland had requested a wake-up call around this time, but when Della went to call the room, she noticed that there was a light indicating that the phone in the room of 1046 was off the hook.
Okay.
At 7 a.m. She contacted...
Strange if he was murdered at 4 a.m.
He was attacked at 4 a.m.
Oh, so he's not dead yet.
Oh, we'll find out, won't we?
Okay.
She contacted Roland Probst, the bellhop, to check on the room. He made his way up to 1046. Only when he got there, he found the door locked with a do not disturb sign on it. After several loud knocks, a voice from inside told him to enter. But Probst didn't bring a master key because he never seemed to lock the door, you know?
Okay.
He couldn't unlock the door. He tried knocking again, and the voice told him to turn on the lights. So the voice is saying, come in, turn on the lights, come in, turn on the lights. But no one was letting him in. So Probst decides to yell at him, hey, hang up the phone, through the door.
Oh, dude, why don't you just go back, say, I'll be right back, sir, I don't have a key. Go back down, get the key. I get it. It's early in the morning. Your shift probably just started. You're just too tired for this nonsense.
This is the frustrating part, is that if they had gotten in there, maybe his life would have been saved and we would not be talking about this mysterious murder of a locked hotel room.
That's just nauseating.
I know. Probst went back downstairs after yelling at the guy in 1046 and told Della that the guest in 1046 was drunk and to give him about another hour before trying to make another phone call to him and waking him up. So around 8:30, about an hour and a half later, Della notices that the phone was still off the hook. So she sent another bellhop, Harold Pike, up to room 1046. And this is the one that really, okay, I can forgive the bellhop for thinking he's drunk. But this is the one that really pisses me off. I'm sorry, Pike. You pissed me off.
All right, so what did Pike do?
So he gets up to room 1046, and the door, of course, is still locked.
What time is this?
It's 8:30.
8:30.
An hour and a half after the first one showed up.
Okay.
And the door was still locked with the do not disturb sign on it. But Pike had a key because he was smart enough to bring one, and so he let himself in. Inside, he found Roland alone, in the dark, naked, and unresponsive.
Okay.
He could make out from the hallway light that there was a strange dark spot on the bed just underneath of his body. Assuming that the man was drunk, instead of turning on a light, he noticed that the phone had completely fallen off the stand and was laying on the floor.
Oh my God, this man keeps knocking his phone off the hook trying to get freaking help.
I think so. He picked up the phone and put it back on the stand and put the phone back on the hook and just left.
What?
Yeah, left.
Dude.
Pike, we gotta talk, man, because that is not appropriate hotel protocol.
He's naked and there's a weird stain.
Yeah.
Unresponsive. Even if he's drunk and he puked all over himself, he could have been,
ODing on alcohol?
Or choking on his own vomit.
And needing help?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's even worse is not only did he leave, but Pike didn't tell anybody what he saw.
He didn't even tell anyone?
No, he didn't go downstairs and say, yo, this guy doesn't look too good. We might need to send a medical up there to check on him, because don't most hotel staffs have like some basic first aid people?
They should, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but this man does not.
They could even do the whole, is there a doctor in the house? Is anybody here staying in this hotel a doctor? We need a doctor. I mean, 1930s ambulances were really more like hearses, I think. I don't know what the history of ambulances is, but...
I don't know. Maybe we'll do an episode on the history of ambulances. That might be fun, right?
Maybe.
Okay, so 2 hours later, around 10:30... another operator, not Della, I guess she's off shift, or I don't know, maybe they have multiple operators.
That makes sense.
But I didn't get the name of this other operator. Noticed that the phone was, once again, off the hook.
Yeah, because the guy is trying to get help. Either trying to be able to call for help, or knocking the phone off the hook because people will come.
So once again, props to the first bellboy, who... I mean, I'm not upset with him yet. He just, failed in his first task, but we'll see.
Please tell me he brings a key this time.
The first bellhop was sent up to the 10th floor, and the door was once again locked. So I don't know if, Pike fixed the phone, turned around, left, and relocked the door, or if somebody else locked the door after Pike left.
That is,
So that's the part I have a question about, because that, to me, was a bit strange. This time, Props brought a key and unlocked the door. Once inside, he found Roland on the floor, basically on his knees and his elbows. His head was bloody. When Props turned on the light and put the phone back on the hook, he then noticed blood on the walls, on the bed, and even in the bathroom.
Oh, good
just
Lord.
Splattered everywhere. It was even on the ceiling.
Oh, that's a very... Okay, so that sounds like a blunt force type attack.
He could have been hit some sort of artery, but I mean, if he hit some sort of artery at 4 o'clock in the morning, the guy would be dead.
Well, it depends. There are some places where obviously you're gonna die real quick,
A slow bleeding artery?
A slow bleeding, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a medical expert by any means, but I have watched a lot of forensic shows.
Yeah.
Not that makes me an expert in anything, and these are all just my guesstimations.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, an artery is going to be a bad thing. The fact that he's still alive, and he has no towels to stop the bleeding.
He doesn't, because
Thanks,
Mary
dude.
took the towels, and Dawn said he didn't need any. Except for he can't stop the bleeding, because when they find him on his hands and knees, he still got his hands tied with cord.
Okay, so he's bound too.
Yeah. And he is able to move with his... because I think it's just his hands, and maybe his ankles or his knees or something were bound, but he's still able to, move around. He's talking at this point.
Okay, so he's... oh, man. That's even worse. He's conscious?
Uh-huh. So Props immediately ran downstairs to get the assistant manager and to get help.
Right.
Because, Props is on top of it once he finally got the door open and turned on a light. Unlike Pike, who all he had to do was turn on a light and see all the blood and go, oh crap, the guy's not drunk.
Ugh, I hate that so much.
When the assistant manager and props returned to room 1046, they couldn't get the door open.
What?
Because Roland had gotten up while Props was gone and thrown his body in front of the door to prevent somebody from coming in and finishing the job.
Okay, so
Isn't that sad?
He's somewhat delirious.
He doesn't know if somebody's coming back to finish the job. He's clearly alive.
So I wonder if he was the one who got up and locked the door.
He probably was.
Like, even if he's in this, like, distressed state, he is still terrified for his life. Oh, this poor
Isn't that
guy.
sad? They managed to force the door open about 6 inches to see that Roland was laying there. And they managed to talk to him and get him to get up by saying, hey, I'm here to help.
We're here to get you medical attention, sir.
Yeah, we're not here to hurt you. And so Roland got up and he moved. So I don't know if his feet are bound, but I know his wrists are bound. But he moved to the bathroom and sat on the bathtub.
So at this point, he has a severe head injury?
So, okay, the assistant manager called the police. When the doctor arrived to examine him, what he found was terrifying. So I'm getting into what your question was.
Okay.
Roland,
I was ahead of myself.
By like 2 seconds. Roland T Owens had been bound with cord around his neck.
Oh, come on.
Wrists and ankles. But I don't know if the bounds were still there at his neck and ankles. I know they were still there at his wrists.
So there's like signs of ligature marks?
Yes.
And there's signs of ligatures around his... Okay.
Yeah. He had bruising around his neck, suggesting that someone had attempted to strangle him on top of the ligature marks. He had been stabbed more than once in the chest above the heart. And one of these wounds were puncturing a lung.
Okay, so he's got bleeding probably going into the lung. Mm-hmm. Slowly suffocating him.
Yeah, he had several blows to the head, which left him with a skull fracture.
Oof.
Dr. Harold Flanders.
Okay, this man is in a lot of pain.
Oh yeah, major. I'm surprised he's able to like think coherently to say lock the door or move his body in front of a door.
It's also possible that adrenaline has just kind of kicked in to the point where he's not feeling it.
Or the fact that he's even talking to these people with a skull fracture. You know?
You can survive a skull fracture.
Yeah. It's just not easy.
It's just not easy, no.
No.
So you've got obvious stab. So that's like 3 modes right there. You have blunt force trauma to the head, strangulation,
and stabbing. I mean, he had all 3.
That's like...
Somebody really wanted him dead.
And he's still alive hours later. You did not do a good job of it, though.
No. Like, pick one, dude.
But that sounds a bit like overkill, in all honesty.
It does. It sounds very personal to me.
It does sound very personal.
Yeah.
Dude, you done pissed off Dawn. I almost speculate if Dawn could have been a lover.
I see, that was what I was thinking, but nobody has speculated Dawn as lover as far as theories go. But I'm going to put it out there as a theory.
I mean, being gay in the 1930s was like a big, huge no-no.
Mm-hmm. I am going to get into Dawn later because we actually possibly found out who he was later on.
Okay.
So just letting you know, put like a little pin in that.
Okay, put a pin in Dawn. Strangulation is a very personal thing, and so is stabbing.
Oh, yeah.
Those are...
You have to be, like, right there to do it.
Stabbing is often an indicator of rage.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And strangulation, that is just, you are looking at that person.
I think it's an indicator of intimacy, which is weird when you consider, like, how gruesome strangulation is.
Well, that's why a lot of serial killers use strangling.
When you look into somebody's eyes.
You're watching the fear, the terror, the last light. I know, it's horrible.
It is.
Psychologically fascinating, but in actually just thinking
In
about
practice,
it as
not so much.
thinking about it as a human, like a decent human being, you're just like, just nauseating.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, continue.
Okay, so Dr. Fletcher, or Flanders, not Fletcher, Dr. Harold Flanders arrived on the scene. He arrived on the scene, and so he was trying to tend to Roland's wounds.
Okay.
And he asked him who'd done this, and Roland responded, nobody.
Okay.
I fell and hit my head in the bathtub.
Okay, then how do you explain why you're bound up? And did you accidentally stab yourself in the bathtub too?
I know, right?
And did you strangle the
I
bathtub?
don't know. But like the doctor then asked a very kind of, I'm sorry, I don't even know why they would have considered this, but they did. The doctor asked if he was trying to commit suicide, but Roland responded no.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna just stab myself to death.
But that didn't work, so I'll go ahead and beat myself to death.
Yeah,
and give
I'm
myself
just gonna pick up this
flight.
lamp, bam, bam, bam. Yeah, like
oh, but that didn't work. So
okay, let's just strangle myself.
Like,
the problem with strangling oneself, I do not know this by experience. Again, I watch a lot of forensic shows. You'll lose consciousness before you actually achieve death. That's why you hang yourself if you're trying to commit suicide.
And he didn't have any like type of rope to hang himself.
No, just cord. Do they have any idea where the cord came from? Was it from the lamps? Was it was just...
I don't know. They never mentioned what it came from or where it came from. And
okay, it was just cord.
I guess it's still an open case as far as I know.
Okay.
But it's like a cold open case. It's a cold case.
It's like as frozen as Texas is right now.
Exactly.
Guys, it's like 10 degrees here, okay? 10. I'm not even kidding.
Roland responded, nobody. I fell and hit my head in the bath. And the doctor asked if he'd committed suicide. I already said that. But Roland responded, no. And then Roland lost consciousness. And he was rushed to a hospital, and he remained unconscious until he died shortly after midnight on January 5th.
Oh, so almost a full 24 hours.
No, they found him January 4th at like 10:30. So it's 10:30 a.m. to midnight, because midnight would constitute as a new date.
I meant almost 24 hours from the attack.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Almost, because the attack you said happens around 4 a.m. So midnight, that would have been 20 hours later.
So
look, guys, I can math.
You can math. The investigation started they jumped into it immediately.
Well, of course.
And the Kansas Police Department began investigating.
At least tell me the police are competent.
I think they try to be competent. Competent. There's literally no evidence. Whoever did this did a good job. Okay. I mean, a bad job, but a good job. And like, we should never aspire to do a good job when like killing, murder. But there just wasn't a lot of evidence or information. The problem is that the hotel staff never actually saw Dawn or anybody else go into the hotel room or leave the hotel room. The only person they ever saw was Roland.
And of course, this is days long before security cameras.
Yes, majorly.
I mean, security cameras are probably at least 50 years away. I've heard of some cases that had them in as early as the 80s, but they were like grainy and not really all that helpful.
Yeah, so the police have to go off of like witness testimonies of like the hotel staff and stuff like that.
And other guests and things.
And I've told you some of the witness testimonies from Props, who's like he didn't bring any luggage, and from Mary, who's like he seemed really scared.
And then that possible sighting of him bleeding.
Yes. The investigation, the Kansas Police Department began investigating immediately. One of the first things that they did was detain and question Jean Owens next door.
Because, one, the poor lady has the unfortunateness of having the same name. Plus, she was next door.
Yeah. So, like, bad time, bad place, wrong place,
Are you related?
wrong time. Yeah, so they wanted to know if she knew them or if he was like family member or something like that. And Jean explained that about the male and female voice that we talked about already, that she had heard arguing the night before, that she had no idea who the man was. Never seen him before, didn't know. They basically held her until her boyfriend came and like corroborated the story, because he came the night before for 2 hours to check on her because she was sick. So he actually heard the arguing too, or something like that.
So one could speculate that it was, in fact, the possible prostitute. And he's like, no, I'm not your John. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
As a possibility, but again, speculation.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they held her until her boyfriend showed up and was like, no, she had nothing to do with it. And they let her go, basically.
Okay.
And Dr. Flanders remained on the scene. He examined Roland's body, but he also examined the bloodstains in the hotel room. And he determined, because of the dried blood in his hotel room, that the wounds had been afflicted between 4 and 5 a.m. that day. So right around the time the prostitute and the strange guy left the hotel.
Walking.
Yeah, left the hotel.
Okay.
So
we're not saying that it was them, but they pretty sus.
Let me do this as a timeline. We already sort of discussed it, but like, okay, if he if he was wounded at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, that is 2 to 3 hours after Probst first visited. Still very viable to live. That is 3 to 4 hours after Pike entered his room and did absolutely nothing. That is 5 to 6 hours after he was finally discovered. Like, honestly, I don't want to put blame on the hotel, but this is definitely frustrating.
Totally.
Especially when you think about how they were made aware of something being wrong not 2 hours later. Not 2 to 3 hours later. Because of the blinky light. And he was clearly asking for help.
Yeah, he was clearly either trying to get to the phone or knocking the phone off.
And the frustrating thing is he could have survived had they come in.
And all he did was say, come in and turn on the light.
Yeah, come in, turn on the light, come in, please.
I suppose not to victim blame. He could have said, help, I'm bleeding.
Yes, exactly. I mean, better communication on both parts would have worked.
And not to victim blame.
Definitely not.
But definitely blame the hotel.
And not to blame the hotel, because it's not like they would have known that happened. And I don't know how many drunk people leave their phones off the hook, and if this is like a normal occurrence.
Maybe it's a common occurrence.
Yeah. But the doctor who performed his autopsy determined that Roland did, in fact, die from his wounds, which we sort of already figured. You know, there was just, like, a lot of blood. So, I mean, yay. Yeah. The detective searched the room 10:46 and took note of what Probst first noticed, that there was no clothes or luggage. And they did, however, find a tag to a necktie. But no necktie, just a tag from a New Jersey company. Which they thought was odd, but like, you know, anyways, everything in this case is a little bit odd, but not odd, you know? It's like
everything is just strange enough.
Yeah, strange enough. Among some of the items missing from the room was soap, shampoo, and towels that were normally provided by the hotel, although we've determined, and everybody goes, yeah, the soaps, the shampoos, and the towels were missing, but like, Mary took the towels. Is it not unbelievable to say that she might take the used shampoos and the used soaps?
Or, generally speaking, don't they provide more for you?
Yeah.
And
but Mary couldn't get in the door
because
that day.
Dawn was like, no, we don't need any of that. We're good.
Yeah. So the detectives also didn't find any kind of weapon or knives in the room, so they ruled out suicide or self-injury, which really is just a ridiculous thought anyways. But I get that they have to, like, rule it out.
They gotta rule it out.
And they came to the conclusion that someone must have attacked him.
Clearly.
One of the room's 2 glasses was found in the sink broken, and the other was still on the shelf. Detectives found some other items that might have been evidence: a hairpin, a safety pin, an unsmoked cigarette, a full bottle of diluted sulfuric acid.
Okay.
That one was a little bit like, okay.
Diluted sulfuric acid.
Yeah. What would it even be used for? Besides, like, the gory stuff.
I mean, I've heard of people using it to dissolve a body.
I know, but it was like a full bottle. Wouldn't you need more than just a bottle, though?
Oh, you would need a lot more than just a bottle.
Yeah. So I don't know why it would be there, but okay. So the detectives also dusted for fingerprints, but it's like 1935, so like their technology on fingerprints aren't great.
No, you literally have to go, this ridge looks like that could be, oh, that's a whirl. Oh, no, this one doesn't match. It doesn't have a whirl.
Yeah. So, but they did find at least 4 different fingerprints on the phone.
But it doesn't help because, again, they don't have like today they have a system where they can compare, they have APHIS, where they can compare from all across the country, across various different law enforcements. But back in the 30s,
they did find one of the fingerprints was what they thought was a woman's fingerprint. Of course, we don't know if it is or isn't, but based on the shape and size. So I'm guessing this is an
unsolved case?
Yeah. Based on the shape and size, it was a thin, small fingerprint, like the shape of a woman's finger.
Okay.
So they determined that it wasn't Mary's finger. It wasn't any of the hotel staff's fingerprint. And so we have a mysterious female, what we think is a female, possible female fingerprint on a phone.
What we have here is we have at least a male and a female.
Yes.
Possibly.
Exactly. The police sought help from the press, and the story made front-page news. So they stated, "There is no doubt that someone else is mixed up in this," Detective Johnson told reporters, confirming that the case was considered a homicide. Obviously. Going on to the identity of the body.
Well, isn't his name Roland T Owens?
Detectives contacted the Los Angeles Police Department to notify next of kin because he had a Los Angeles address. When the Los Angeles Police Department came back with, yeah, we don't have a Roland T Owens here.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was an alias?
Yeah.
And a fake address?
Yeah.
Oh no. So now they don't even know who he is?
Nope. The dead man's fingerprint was sent to what was at the time the Justice Department Bureau of Investigation, later called the FBI, to find a possible match in their collection. But while waiting on that, they've never found a match. Well, they have like a year later, but like we'll get into that.
Ugh.
Actually, I don't know if they ever like were able to match fingerprints, because I don't know that they would have been able to match those fingerprints with his fingerprints, but whatever. We'll get to it. While awaiting a match from the Justice Department, the hotel president received a phone call from a woman. She wanted to know what Roland T Owens looked like and claimed that she knew him from Clinton, a town only 50 miles away. The newspaper reported of a man under an assumed name being murdered in a hotel room, and the Mulbach Hotel contacted the police and stated that, yeah, he stayed here for like one night, but he went by a different name, Eugene K. Scott. He also gave a Los Angeles address and, again, requested a room high up on the interior side of the building or inside the building.
So nobody could climb through a window and kill him. This is obviously a man who's scared.
Again, after investigating, the LAPD reported that once again, there was no one by the name of Eugene K. Scott. The funeral home put his body on display for identification because back then, funeral homes did that. They didn't have technology or internet or any other way to identify a person like we do today. So people flocked from all over the country to see if it was their missing loved one. There were a couple of possible matches. This is where Robert Lane went to view the body and identified the man by the gash on his arm.
And he says, "I saw this man." Okay.
Yeah,
and that was at 11 o'clock.
Yeah. The police, however, were not so sure since none of the hotel staff reported seeing the man leave the hotel that night, and police were able to establish one sighting of Roland outside of the hotel. a report that he had been seen with 2 women at several liquor places on 12th Street, though I'm not sure when this was or what day it was or what time it was. I could only find like a small statement on it. But they're like, no, this is the only positive identification was he was at liquor store with these 2 women. They're inconclusive with Robert Lane because they couldn't prove that he left the hotel. So my best guess is that he was seen with these 2 women liquor place when he left the first time, when Props first gave him the room.
Right.
You know? Or
that makes sense.
When Mary came in and was like, you know, I need to clean your room, and he left and said, hey, leave the door open, I have friends coming. So those are my 2 possible explanations.
Which is also when he could have put the note down.
Yeah, exactly.
Only he wasn't back in 15 minutes. I found some girls and some booze.
Yeah. Another man came to the funeral home and identified the body as his cousin. But when the man's sister came to view the body, she confirmed that the cousin had, in fact, died 5 years earlier.
Oh, boy.
Another man named Tony Bernardi, a wrestling promoter, because remember he had the cauliflower ear, thought that he might be a wrestler by the name of Cecil Werner, who'd approached him about some wrestling matches, but Bernardi wound up referring him to another promoter in Omaha, Nebraska, but that promoter did not identify him as Cecil. Okay. So that kind of fell through too. Within a few days, 2 new homicides in the city drew detectives' attentions away from Roland's case. I'm just going to call him Roland until we know who he is.
We gotta solve murders that we actually have clues on.
And newspaper coverage dwindled, and the leads had all fallen cold. He did come back up a couple months later on March 3rd when the funeral home said he has yet to be identified, so we're going to give him a pauper's, is it called a pauper's? Pauper's grave. And so the news, said that he was going to have a pauper's grave. And apparently the same day that the news aired, or was in the newspaper or whatever, I don't know exactly how that worked, but the same day that happened, the funeral home received a phone call from a man who asked the funeral to be delayed so that he could pay for a grave and a service in a nearby cemetery, Memorial Park Cemetery in Kansas City. Now, he stated that the reason he wanted to do it at this cemetery was so that Roland would be close to his sister. But I don't know if any of that's true. And I don't know who the mysterious man was. Was it Dawn? We don't know.
Close to a sister? Well, what sister?
When the funeral director asked why the man had been killed, the caller responded that Roland had had an affair with one woman while engaged to another. And the caller and the 2 women had apparently arranged the encounter with him at the President in order to exact revenge. Cheaters usually get what's coming to them. Then the caller hung up.
Ooh.
So,
could have been the murderer.
I guess he's he arranged to have this revenge happen on him, but he's going to pay for the funeral?
Maybe it went south real bad. Maybe they didn't. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know, but the service was postponed, like requested, and on March 23rd, the funeral home received an envelope, and the address was carefully written using a ruler to prevent anybody from matching handwriting.
Wow.
Inside the envelope was $25 or $500 in today's day and age.
That's still not enough to pay for a funeral today.
Which was enough to cover expenses.
Okay, but it's not today.
A second envelope was sent to a local florist with $10 to pay for an arrangement of 13 roses on the grave. A card was requested to go with the roses to say, "Love forever, Louise." Both phone calls to the funeral home and the florist were made from a payphone, 2 various different payphones within the city.
Hard to track.
And the funeral was held shortly afterwards. Besides the officiating minister, the only attendees were police detectives, some of whom served as pallbearers. Over the next several days, detectives disguised as grave diggers staked out Roland's grave, but no one came to visit.
Oh, so I'll pay for you to be buried, but I'm not going to come visit you.
No, he probably figured that police would be there to, like, see who would come to visit.
That makes sense. No, it's not the first time that
Mhm.
graves have been done a stakeout on a grave to try to
Yeah.
see if the murderer will come to show respects.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of a common practice among police officers.
Mm-hmm. It's not uncommon to have a police officer planted in a funeral to see if anyone is suspicious.
Exactly. So several days after the funeral, a woman called the Kansas City Journal-Post to inform them that the dead man from room 1046 was not buried in a pauper's grave, but that he'd been given a formal funeral. She said that the funeral home and flower shop could verify this. Though she'd refused to identify herself, she did mention he got into a jam and ended the conversation.
I'll say he did.
So we have a strange man calling to pay for a funeral, a strange woman calling the newspaper to inform them.
Possibly Louise?
Possibly Louise. There were so many questions, and it seemed like at least 2 people had the answers, but why he was murdered, we don't know. So fast forward about a year later, we're finally going to look at the body being identified.
Oh, good.
When we finally find some answers. The American Weekly published an article about the story, as well as a picture of him, in hopes that somebody seeing the article might identify him. That someone was Ruby Ogletree from Birmingham, Alabama.
Ogletree?
Ogletree.
That's a name.
She read the article, then quickly realized that the unidentified man was her 17-year-old son.
17?
17. He was just a baby.
He was just a little baby.
I know. His name was Artemis Ogletree.
Oh, so he just really, really got himself into some trouble.
Yeah.
This poor
At
little
17,
baby.
he was murdered, and we don't know why.
Oh, he was just a little baby.
Her son left home in 1934 to hitchhike to California. He'd written her several handwritten letters to keep up to date with whatever was going on in his life. As time went on, the letter became fewer and further between, and even became stranger in their writings. But she'd had no idea that anything had happened to him, that her son was murdered in such a gruesome way. So, like, reality check, and horrible reality check, your son's dead, and you find out through a magazine.
Ugh, that's just horrible.
Ruby immediately contacted the Kansas City Police Department and was able to provide enough information to identify the man, including a description of his headscar, which she explained was the result of an accident with cooking grease when he was a young child. She even showed the investigators letters that Artemis had sent her. There was just one problem. Several of the letters were dated after Artemis Ogletree was murdered in Kansas City. These letters were not like Artemis' handwritten letters. These letters were written using a typewriter.
Oh, no. Well, as we have seen in previous cases, like with the Lonely Hearts Killers, they used typewriter with one of their victims to send letters to her daughter.
How horrible for this mother to be getting these typewritten letters.
She literally thinks that her son is still alive.
Yeah, and somebody is sending them, trying to prevent her from finding out. Okay, so we're going to go over the letters. The first letter was written in the spring of 1935. Ruby did think that this was odd, as her son didn't know how to use a typewriter. It was also written with a lot of slang, which was not consistent with his previous letters. He didn't use slang when talking to his mom, you know?
Oh yeah. No, that's perfectly...
You use a different language.
There is a certain... Yes, there is... You communicate with a parent in one way, and you communicate with friends and peers in a different way.
Yeah.
It's just...
I mean, if you're going to do it, don't put slang in the letter that you're trying to pass off as somebody else to their mother.
So it's obvious that the person who typed up the letters didn't know him well enough. Knew him, but didn't know him well enough.
Right. So a second letter was sent in May of 1935 to Ruby. This one was also typed with a typewriter. In it, the alleged Artemis said that he was going to Europe. This was followed by another special delivery letter saying that his ship was sailing that day. Both of these letters were sent from New York.
Okay.
3 months later, in August, Ruby got a phone call from a man in Memphis, Tennessee. The man told her that Artemis had saved his life in a bar fight, but that he'd lost one finger and was unable to write. I think he said it was his thumb. I'm not sure. That was why Artemis started learning to use a typewriter and why her letters had been typed, because he could no longer hold a pen. He also told Ruby that Artemis would be unable to call for a while because he was now living in Cairo, Egypt, where he'd married a high-class woman, but that he was healthy and doing well. She recalled that the man seemed to talk wildly and irrationally, but that he had first-hand knowledge about Artemis. She gave the police the name that the man identified himself by, and it was never made public. The name was never released to the public. Later developments, and there's not much, because like I said, this is a full-on cold case.
And nobody really knows anything, but he was only 17.
And this is where I'm getting into Dawn.
Okay, get into Dawn.
Investigations reopened the case thanks to new information brought to light by Ruby Ogletree. They discovered a third hotel in Kansas City, the St. Regis Hotel, where Artemis roomed with another man. Whether this other man had been Don was not determined. In 1937, the New York Police Department arrested a man named Joseph Martin after he'd killed his roommate and tried to ship the body to Memphis.
Wait, what?
Joseph Martin killed his roommate and tried to ship the body to Memphis, and he got caught and was arrested for it. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because the police found his wallet with several aliases, including one named Donald Kelso.
Ooh,
they also found some handwriting samples that the Kansas Police Department later matched to the letters written to Ruby Ogletree. But no charges were filed for the Ogletree case, and the case went cold. And the last little shred of ongoing is in early 2000, John Horner, a local historian, received a call from someone out of state. They said that they had been helping to inventory the belongings of an elderly person who died when they found a huge shoebox filled with articles and newspaper clippings about the case. The caller never identified themselves, and nothing ever came from the mysterious phone call.
Okay.
But they thought it was strange enough to report that there would just be this shoebox full of the case. So...
But they never looked into it.
Well, I don't know if they never looked into it or if they just couldn't find the caller, because the caller refused to identify themselves.
That sucks.
Theories. So there are a few theories to consider as a possibility. The telephone calls to the newspaper and funeral home in Flores alleging that Ogletree was killed in retaliation for cheating on a loved one is certainly interesting.
You can get into some trouble.
Yeah, another possibility is Don, whoever he was, possibly Joseph Martin, killed Ogletree for some personal reason, either with the help of the mysterious woman, possibly a prostitute.
Do you know how old he was?
Who?
Don?
I have no idea. Because we don't honestly know if it was Joseph Martin, and I don't know how old Joseph Martin was at the time. And another theory that is considered is that Artemis Ogletree got involved with organized crime, since the name Don can also be title for a mob boss. But I think this is a little weak, to be honest. You know, with some of the strange happenings, it could also be organized crime, because they would possibly take care of their own, even if they screwed up, by ensuring that they got a proper funeral.
That's true.
You know? But I still think it's a little bit weak that Dawn, the reason that there is this link is because Dawn is
I don't really think you're going to be referring to the letters as Dawn.
So what do you guys think? I kind of like your theory of it being like some sort of like gay revenge plan. In the 1930s, they would have been attacked if they were gay.
You would not have, I mean, what, it's only been in the last like 20 years that it's been safer?
Yeah, but if Don was actually this like Martin person, he killed his roommate and tried to mail him to Memphis. Like, so, is it possible that he then would have been able to kill Roland, Artemis, whatever his name is, Artemis?
It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's what it was. It is also possible that maybe, I'm just throwing this out there, Artemis could have been bi.
Mm-hmm.
And so the love triangle thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. It's definitely to me it definitely sounds like it is someone who knew him.
And it sounds like he was on the run. I mean, 3 hotels in Kansas City, staying with the same guy, but like keeping the doors locked and the lights off, staying in an interior hotel.
Oh yeah, he wanted to be up high and interior with no windows. That's very specific.
Yeah.
Ground floor, somebody climbs in through the window.
Yeah, you're gone. You're done. Yeah. So that is the case of the mysterious murder in room 1046.
That's really kind of sad.
He
was only 17.
I know. Isn't it sad?
I was expecting him to be
25 years
25
old.
or older. Yeah, I was expecting him to be like, he said he was between 20 and 35. I was expecting 25 is kind of in the middle of that ish, and I was expecting him to be in his 20s. I was not expecting him to be that young.
I know.
You kept that from me.
I did. I tried to, because that was like a shocking part, So.
Yeah, that's really shocking. Now, was he 17 when he left home?
No, he was 17 when he died. Yeah, 17 when he died. So he was just a little baby.
It's just a little baby.
Yeah. So you guys let us know what you guys think happened to him. Again, it's a cold case, so nobody actually knows, but we'd love to hear your theories.
Yeah. And also, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook under Curious Tales.
We have a Facebook under Curious Tales?
Yeah, we have a Facebook.
Oh, go
I
us.
set it up, yeah. We have a Facebook.
Okay.
And you can find our podcasts on Stitcher, iTunes, and Spotify.
Yeah. And maybe even YouTube. We'll see.
We are seriously considering just slapping them up on YouTube.
Yeah. Don't say slapping them.
Well, I mean,
I'll put a little more effort than just slapping them.
Well, they're already edited. All you got to do is put it to take the audio with our picture, and there you go. So it's pretty slapped together.
I guess that's true.
Well, we're thinking about putting them up on YouTube. So if we do, leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
And ring that little notification bell.
So you know whenever a new one comes on. Gotta have all our bases covered,
Yeah, just in case. All right, you guys. That was the case of room 1046. We'll see you guys next time.
I'm Missy.
I'm Micah.
Bye.
Bye.